Welcome back to my annual Oscar series where I talk about all the Oscar categories except for the short film ones. I rank all the nominees per category according to who I think deserves to win each Oscar. Then I make a prediction for who I think will win that Oscar. So right now we're going to be talking about Best Cinematography, a crowd favorite. And the nominees are Arrival, Bradford Young; La La Land, Linus Sandgren; Lion, Greig Fraser; Moonlight, James Laxton; and Silence, Rodrigo Prieto. Now, I think this is a really strong list of nominees, and the Best Cinematography category usually does have a lot of strong nominees. It's always tough for me to rank this category because at this point in film history, there is really no limit to what you can do with the way a movie looks. So, in my opinion, it's not really that one movie looks better than another, it's what look best suits a film. As for snubs, I wouldn't really say there are any snubs in this category because, there are just so many films that would be worthy here. Of course, I would have liked to see The Handmaiden, which was, again, snubbed in every single category. A lot of people praise Hell or High Water's cinematography, and to a certain extent Jackie's cinematography, which is very handheld but in a good way. But anyway, in terms of who I think deserves to win the Oscar, at 5th place I'm going to give it to Lion. And Lion does have great cinematography. It has really vivid colors, particularly in the first half of the film, where the look of the movie is made to make us feel just as lost and as scared as the young Saru, because of just how they use focus, of how the shots are composed, and how the world is made to look way bigger than Saru himself. And of course, this is the Google Earth movie, so there are a lot of great aerial shots that line up with the older Saru using Google Earth to try and find where his family is. If I had any negatives about Lion that really put it to 5th place, it's really just the fact that the cinematography is not as strong or memorable in the second half compared to the first. Now, at 4th place, I'm going to give it to Silence. There is a harshness to the cinematography of Rodrigo Prieto that really heightens the bleakness at the heart of the film. There's a starkness to how this film looks that really kind of gives the impression that it's cold there. And so you kind of feel just inherently danger in the air as these Portuguese priests set foot in Japan. And there are so many moments in Silence that have incredible framing and just composure that are instantly memorable and will stay with me forever because Silence is such a disturbing film, and it's helped along by the cinematography. And I think that a lot of these shots that highlight space, negative space and whatnot, really communicate the fact that these priests are out of their element, and at the same time the internal struggle of these priests of have they been deserted by God and whatnot. And I think it's great that the visuals help portray that. Now, at 3rd place, I'm going to give it to Arrival. Arrival makes incredible use of darkness in such a way that I don't think a lot of cinematographers would dare to attempt, because there are a lot of shots in Arrival where the focus is not necessarily on the character but on their silhouette. And so the silhouettes become much starker, which really creates an interesting effect visually. Silhouettes are not something you usually notice in films, I think, especially films of this day and age where color has become the more important thing. But here it really uses blacks and whites that really tie in thematically as well with the heptapod language, I think. And Arrival cinematography does this thing where whenever we get a sort of close-up shot of Louise Banks, played by Amy Adams, the background is intentionally kind of blurred out, and we're really made to focus on just her. And I think that serves a narrative purpose as well, because when you figure out later on what's going on with Louise, this visual look really represents it well. So Arrival has that personal sort of touch to its visuals, but Bradford Young's cinematography also captures the just grandness, the breathtaking scale of these heptapod shells coming to Earth. The first shot you see of that first shell is mind-blowing. Now, down to the last 2 slots, I was flip-flopping between these two for weeks. I really just did not know how to pick. And I will hate myself, again, no matter what order I put these two in. So at 2nd place, I have to give it to Moonlight, I suppose. But don't get me wrong, the cinematography here by James Laxton is honestly some of the best ever, I think, in a film. I thought long and hard about how to describe how the cinematography in Moonlight made me feel. And the best way I can articulate it is that watching this movie makes it feel like you're pressing on a wound and then you're numbing to the pain. It's a really specific description, but that's really how it made me feel. There are extremely vibrant colors in Moonlight, really beautiful use of lighting, And just like in Arrival, the edges of the frame are blurred out for most of the time, and we get a lot of these great shots that are centered, you know, just like shots of people looking directly into the camera, or shots of the backs of their heads while they're walking. And everything that James Laxton does visually in Moonlight really is done to put us into the shoes of Chiron, to really make him feel how he's feeling, his confusion, the persecution he feels and that he kind of heaps onto himself. It is just such great character work told through pure visuals alone. And finally, at first place in the film that I, at this point in time, would say deserves the Oscar is La La Land. And it honestly did just take my breath away watching this movie. I'm usually very quiet in movie theaters when I watch films, but there were so many moments during my first screening and the second and the third of La La Land where I really just sort of shook my head and thought to myself, like, I can't believe this shot is happening, because there's so many beautiful, really well composed shots. The colors are bright and romantic, technicolor. There are a lot of moving shots that seem to sort of compose themselves, like a character just walks into a certain position and then suddenly it creates this money shot, and it's great. Of course, La La Land uses CinemaScope in tribute to the old school musicals, and I will admit that La La Land does have the flashiest cinematography, but I do think everything it does for a reason. It's not just doing it for the sake of flash, you know. It helps tell the story, it helps capture both the wonder of being in LA and also like the isolation of it. So I do think it is masterful cinematography. And in terms of who I think will actually win the Oscar, I also think they're going to give it to La La Land. It's a movie about LA after all. It harkens back to old school musicals, as I've mentioned before. And it really is just a flat-out gorgeous movie with shots that will really stay with you and shots that have now become, dare I say, iconic. Alright, so those are my thoughts on the Best Cinematography category. What do you guys think of this category? What do you think of the nominees? Who do you think should win? Who do you think will win? Whatever you guys think, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.